Hello, welcome to episode 46. Now, today, I really want to go deeply into lesson number 93. In some ways, I think it's the most important lesson of the course. I can't say it's my favorite lesson because lesson 189 is my favorite, telling us to come with holy empty arms unto the oneness. You can't beat that. But in a way, I think lesson 93 is the course, because the course talks about removing the blocks to love. Because love is what we are. The light and holiness is what we are. But we have a belief in unworthiness. And Dr. Bob, before he died, everybody probably knows Dr. Bob. He has been the CEO, the co-CEO of the Blue Book, the Foundation for Inner Peace. And he gave a wonderful lecture a year or two before he died. And it was about shame and A Course in Miracles. And I might have mentioned it in one of my episodes or more, because shame is a psychological concept that has only been around since the 80s. Of course, the word shame on you and shaming people has been in our consciousness forever as something destructive that people do to each other and we do to children historically. And shame psychologically means that your worth as a person is in question. It's different from guilt, where you made a mistake. Guilt is talked about in A Course in Miracles. And I want to give Dr. Bob the credit, Dr. Bob Rosenthal, who is very, very beloved in this community. I want to give him the credit for saying that the course came through two psychologists, and undoubtedly the word would have been shame if that was a current word. But the course came out through these two psychologists way before shame was a current word. And I would like to do my bit to change that word shame, because as a psychotherapist, I have found that when you try to get people to do their shame work, like where do they feel spiritual bankruptcy, where do they feel that deep pang of unworthiness, where they have to keep their beliefs a secret and hide, which is the exact opposite of what heals shame. Shame is like, tell people I'm having an unworthy moment. Tell people I'm feeling like a knife was stabbed into me by myself. Whatever your language would be, uncover it. That's what AA has taught us. If you speak to people about your unworthiness, you'll feel that connection again. When we're in shame, we're disconnected. So, lesson 93 starts beautifully. Light and joy and peace abide in me. Where's the shame in that? Not at all. Next sentence. You think you are the home of evil, darkness, and sin. You think if anyone could see the truth about you, he would be repelled, recoiling from you as if from a poisonous snake. You think if what is true about you were revealed to you, you would be struck with horror so intense that you would rush to death by your own hand, living on after seeing this being impossible. These are beliefs so firmly fixed that it is difficult to help you see that they are based on nothing. That you would have made mistakes is obvious. That you have sought salvation in strange ways, have been deceived, deceiving and afraid of foolish fantasies and savage dreams, and have bowed down to idols made of dust. All this is true by what you now believe. Today, we question this, not from the point of view of what you think, but from a very different reference point, from which such idle thoughts are meaningless. Do you see why I say this might be the most important question? Because if we bring, I want to say, our legitimate denial, if we say, this is not true, show me my worth. I'm calling that legitimate denial. There are many ways to deny. Unconscious denial would be, I'm going to pretend that I feel great about myself when actually I feel like crap. And then I'm going to prove that I'm better than other people by competing because I don't feel good enough, or all the myriad ways the ego can do it. But let's just take a moment and use the word imagined unworthiness. If I keep repeating imagined unworthiness, now I'm speaking the truth without hitting myself over the head with that word SHAME that makes me feel so wretched. I do believe that that's why people don't do that work. They really shy away from doing that work. They'll do their guilt work. They'll do their fear work. They'll do their pain work. And they do not want to expose that imagined unworthiness. Now, in certain circles, in Jennifer Hadley's groups, they do speak of unworthiness, but there can be a tendency to claim that as a new identity. My unworthiness, like my ego, that's not going to do it either. It's not the truth. And the more you repeat your identity and the pain of it, the more we're solidifying it. So you can see if the opposite of a feeling like we're the home of devil, darkness, and sin, what if I remembered that this self doesn't exist at all except in my imagination? And I love this part here. It means nothing. It's neither bad nor good. That's in paragraph 5. It's unreal. So it's neither bad nor good. That brings us to the non-dual. Neither bad nor good. It's in the non-dual, we can take feelings and thoughts and we don't have to work with them. We don't have to purify them as long as we go directly to they are imagined. We created those thoughts. Who are we? What are we? Again, in paragraph 5, it takes us to the non-dual. We're eternal. And what power can this self you made possess when it would contradict life, when it would contradict awareness? Here it speaks of the will of God. The non-dual speaks of that neutrality of awareness where we get to drop all the judgments. We get to drop all our preferences, all our comparisons, and join what Dove likes to call the sameness. That brings us to eternity, to a connection with the ancestors. It brings us to awareness that is just aware of what we're feeling and thinking, but it's not a part of it, does not identify with it. And here is the best in paragraph 6. Your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. Over and over, this must be repeated until it is accepted. That's what paragraph 6 says. But if we were to accept it right now, your sinlessness is guaranteed. Nothing can touch it or change what God created as eternal. What if we were not only not these bad people, these people who we felt were not worthy or good enough? What if it wasn't true? What if we wasted all our time in false beliefs? Then I would know right now what paragraph 7 says. Light and joy and peace abide in me because I am what God is. It says here, my sinlessness is guaranteed by God. So now it says, put away your foolish self-image and spend the rest of the practice period trying to experience what God has given you in place of what you have decreed to yourself. Try to experience the unity of your oneself. Try to appreciate your holiness and the love from which you were created. And that love can be received as a neutral love, an all-embracing love. I know I'm a little different from some people, but I like to think of it as God's love as a neutral embrace, not as making me special and everything's for my good. It's for the good of life. And it's for the isness of life, for my isness, for existence. I just had a birthday and I love celebrating my birthday now, but not my life, my birthday, the personal Rosalind. I'm celebrating life in general, the fun of it, the mystery of it, the frustration of it, the puzzle of it, the fact that I get to live and choose my holiness once again. That is what I'm celebrating, not my specialness and what I want to get. That is the way it was in the past. getting, giving. It's all one. It's part of breathing. But when we go to the impersonal, it just feels, if you will, more purified, more holy, less egotistical. For me, it's been a very useful guide. If my feelings get hurt, it's really clear that it's the personal, it's the personality. That's another word for the ego, but there isn't another word that corresponds to impersonal. Course doesn't use impersonal too much. I don't know if it uses it at all. In non-duality, it is a big word, but the effort is to bring up how intimate it can be, because there is nothing more intimate than God. There is nothing more intimate than my experience of oneness, than your experience of oneness, than our experience of oneness. It's completely intimate. But let's see if we can't have an experience now of what the neutral feels like. So let's all take a deep breath. And let the flow of life just circulate through us. Let's wiggle our toes. Let's wiggle our fingers. And let the flow come outside of our fingers into the room. And let the space of the room represent the space of eternity. And if we're going to eternity, let's pop out of this room into the space of our apartment or our house. And if we're going to invite the ancestors and God's embrace, let's pop out energetically from our house or apartment out into the space outside. And notice that there are no places where you can definitely find where you end and eternity begins. Are you still the you were yesterday? Are you still the you that you were 5 days ago, 1 year ago? Maybe you have different aches and pains. Maybe you have more wrinkles. But is your essence the same? Is your essence the same now as when you were born? Some of us would go to that imaginary unworthiness and say, no, I've tarnished it by actions, by thoughts, or by feelings. But that's what this lesson is telling us. That is not the truth. We are not unworthy. Even if we feel that way, it doesn't make it true. Now you have a decision to make up. Are you going to go back to that perceived guilt, mistakes you think you've made? Everything is a lesson God would have me learn. So really, there are no mistakes. There aren't even any errors because it has all been written. I love when the Course talks this way. The borderland talks about no mistakes. The borderline talks about everything is planned. I know the Course says many places, choose again. And that's only because we believe in our experience that we're the choosers. Right? Some entity is going to have the last laugh. That entity is going to be us and you and everyone, the collective, the oneness. When we see how it's all been written, we've just been pawns acting out these parts, just like the weather, crashing into each other, sometimes giving each other lots of space. In the space between you and the space between me, can you find the field of love? In the space between you and the space between your brother who you think neglected you, did not respect you, hurt your feelings, didn't trust you. In the space between where you've put up walls and where they might have put up walls, can you find your connection in that space? Can you find the love that is real? If the unworthiness is not real, if it is indeed imagined unworthiness, then there's nothing that happened with you and your brother or sister. We're told that love is the only thing that's real. And everything else is a call for love or imagined. Isn't that good news? Isn't that awesome? Now let's expand that field of love between you and your brother. And let's push it out to include all the people in your groups. Go from one group to the other. I'll be quiet for a moment. All the people you know and the people you don't know who listen on replay. All the people who listen on ACIM Gather. People you know, the people you don't know. Now the love is expanding to Russia, to the Ukraine, to Texas, to Chicago, to everywhere in the world. The places we have believed have been harmed and the places we believe are doing the harm. And let's include everyone in our love field. And can you feel where you end and someone else begins? It gets harder and harder. Perhaps this is what purification is. when we release those boundaries, when we release those limits, when we release that perceived mistakes, when we release our imagined unworthiness. Let's go back to the lesson title, Lesson 93, Light and Joy and Peace Abide in Me. 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 Light and joy and peace abide in you. Light and peace and joy 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 abide in you. Rest in God, my friend. Bye-bye.